generation or two.
Paul Goldsmith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My pleasure to speak on this, the State Sector and Public Finance Reform Bill. And indeed, it was a positive experience working closely with our colleagues on the other side of the House in the Select Committee process, working our way through what were complicated issues and reaching an agreement which is important on such structural legislation as this, which is intended to guide the state sector over generations and continue the work that we will continue that sense of bipartisanship we've had over these bills in the past. So the key point of this legislation is delivering better public services to New Zealanders is one of National's main priorities, and this omnibus bill amends the state sector, the Public Finance and Crown Entities Act to provide the legislative grunt to deliver better public services. And why is that important, Mr. Speaker? Well, for a start, the core Crown expenses represent about a third of the economic activity of this country. So core Crown expenditure peaked around 35% of GDP during the GFC, and thanks to prudent management by this government, we're back on track to get it down to about 30% in 2015. And when we add in local government and capital spending, total government spending is around 43% of GDP. So when we're interested in New Zealand growing and becoming more prosperous, we have to pay attention to that large part of the economy which is directly in the hands of government. And so how do we ensure that the state sector itself is productive, that it's increasing its productivity year in and year out is a very significant question. And I've spent much of my career to this point writing business histories, and the striking thing when considering successful companies is that they are constantly innovating and rethinking every part of their business from ground zero every year. And they have to do this because they know that if they don't, they'll go out of business, because somebody else will have discovered a better way of doing things and they will eat their lunch. And so that basic discipline is sometimes muffled when it comes to the public sector, funded by taxes which are ultimately funded by force. So the amendments in this legislation create a range of public sector management tools to foster an innovative, efficient public sector to deliver the better indicated results for New Zealanders. Now, if we drill down to the specifics of this legislation, the changes to the State Sector Act in particular focus on strengthening the State Sector's Commissioner's role in leading the state services, and extends the Chief Executive responsibilities to consider the collective interests of government and longer-term sustainability rather than focusing on single departments or agencies. And this legislation has been a result of detailed thinking over an extended period led by the Better Public Services Advisory Group, which was set up to identify the issues that need addressing in order for the state sector to be more productive and more effective. And that group identified the tendency of agencies to work in silos at the expense of the sector and wider system-wide performance. And so this change, which is getting government agencies led by their CEOs to work more closely together and to organise themselves around results that make a difference to New Zealanders, I think is a more effective way of doing things. Rather than carrying on the way things have always been done. So what is it that we're trying to achieve in child health or education outcomes, and how is it best for all the relevant agencies to work together? Now, this might sound simple and obvious, but the structures of how government is organised and how the leaders of each department are incentivised makes a huge difference. And this legislation, by broadening the things that a chief executive in a particular department has to think about and to broaden that into a wider public sector, I think will make a difference over the long term. There are many other things that were handled during the Select Committee process. The issues of redundancy have been covered by the Minister, and also the CEO's ability to delegate powers and creating a mechanism, and I won't go into that in further detail, but I'll leave that to other speakers. But in order, I commend this bill to the House. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker.
Honourable David Parker.
Thank